You are listening to the Body Charge podcast, and I'm your host, Sandy Sanderson. Welcome to the Body Charge podcast. Today's topic is the consequences of problems with sucking as a baby. Many mothers have experienced the excruciating pain of mastitis from painful breastfeeding, poor latch, clicking and leaking with babies who struggle to do something we'd always thought was perfectly natural. Problems with sucking and swallowing are often dismissed as something that just writes itself. However, researchers are finding such unresolved issues can lead to lasting health issues as an adult. My special guest today is Dr. James Thomas, a paediatric dentist who discovered that oral dysfunction and passive feeding in infancy can set the stage for breathing, digestion, and developmental issues later. He's the author of the book, Why Babies Suck. So welcome aboard, Dr. James.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Sandy.
My first question is, what do you actually mean by oral dysfunction and passive feeding? What actually is going on there that causes problems?
Yeah, so when a baby's born, they get kind of suck training in utero when they're underwater, and so they start sucking really early. That forms the digestive system and also the upper jaw. Actually, the bones of the face actually are formed by the suck, and we'll get to a little bit more on that later. But when the baby's born, the baby can actually have it's kind of a controversial topic, but it's not really controversial. But they can have lip and tongue ties that inhibit the tongue from moving properly. But to be honest with you, a tongue tie gets all the press, but oral dysfunction is the long-term problem. And so if there's not a lot of, how I say it is, there's not a lot of things in life that passivity helps. So like if we're struggling with our weight, if we just sit on the couch, it's probably not going to help. If we're struggling at work or our finances, if we don't dive in, it's probably not going to help. And the same thing goes for the formation of a suck. If the baby is passively feeding and no one picks it up, they just have oral dysfunction. Maybe they don't even have a lip and a tongue tie, and they just have oral dysfunction. They need a little bit of help. If no one picks it up, then the baby can suffer massive consequences. Because most moms at this point, and I have no agenda, breast versus bottle. I just want people to understand oral dysfunction. I know so much about breastfeeding and all the positive things that come with it and the connection to mom and the connection to the milk. And the milk is literally changing by the microsecond for what the baby needs. And but if the baby's passively feeding, they're going to struggle to breastfeed. They can't. You can't be a passive breastfeeder after the first 30 days. So this journey in my book, Why Babies Suck, everybody laughs at the title, but we got to write these titles that make people turn the first page, right? And I definitely do not think babies suck. I want people to know that a dysfunctional suck can cause a lot of long-term problems. And so when a mom goes to a pediatrician maybe or a primary care physician, they're kind of looking at this growth curve and they're just kind of tracking. And we totally understand that that growth curve is good, but that doesn't necessarily mean the baby is thriving. They might be growing, but they might not be thriving. And what I mean by that is the hormonal milk supply from pregnancy is held for about the first 30 days. It's kind of the university's way of helping mom and baby figure out breastfeeding or feeding in general. So the baby will dip right after birth, and then the milk comes in, and then usually kind of return to birth weight. And the goal is to gain an ounce a day for the first 3 months, actually. But there's a lot of stories where at about the 30-day mark, where the feeding turns from just this rush of mom's milk to on-demand removal or active removal. And if no one catches that the baby's not actively removing the milk, the mom's story is going to change definitely at the breast. She's going to turn into a mom that has to pump to keep her supply going. She's going to turn into a mom that's struggling to latch because the baby's getting fussy. Maybe the baby's fatiguing. Maybe the baby's losing weight. And maybe the baby just can't do it. Or her latch in general is now getting kind of more chompy instead of the actual tongue being able to do the work. So that's what I do at Health Watch. And it's a very different clinic that I've started now, but it's going really well. So that's what we kind of mean by passive versus active.
Yeah, can I just ask a question just to
Mm-hmm.
clarify what you've told us? there's an innate knowledge, isn't it? I mean, our DNA and our programming in cells, we kind of we have the information at birth of how to do that, but we need some kind of stimulation to trigger it, to bring it on. In other words, the baby has to work for it. So it comes out automatically looking for something to suck, but it needs
Mhm.
practice. Just like when you go to the gym, right? And you work your muscles, and then your
That's
muscles
right.
get a memory in the
Yeah.
muscle, and then they know what to do. But we need that learning curve, that integration. And then you mentioned about mothers whose milk they have to pump to keep the breast producing milk. Because if the baby is not sucking correctly, the demand isn't there to stimulate the breast to produce the milk. So it's a two-way street, isn't it?
Yeah, they're working together. We call it a dyad, right? The two are working together. But here's kind of the gist of the book. And, when I became a student of writing the book, because this is my first book, I sat down with a team of people that were helping me with messaging, actually. And I'm giving you a little nugget of everything that got me to this point in terms of craniofacial growth and development of issues with behavior and anxiety in older kids. But when I told all my team all of these stories, they paused after about an hour and they said, Dr. Thomas, holy cow, you are 10 books deep. You have enough knowledge for at least 10 books. And I was like, oh, really? And they said, but a book is about one thing. If you write a book more than just one thing, one main point, you actually can really lose the reader. And I actually understood what they were trying to teach me. And then they said a book kind of has a formula of this like hero's journey, right? We kind of start off with these problems and then we find our Yodas, right? The Yoda kind of teaches us a lesson and we get to the other
Yep.
side. And so, uh, the book is really about validation of a mother specifically. I'm not saying it's not validation of a father or two moms or two dads, because there's lots of different families that I talk about in the story breaks in the book. But I found myself really frustrated with mothers specifically coming and telling me their story, and they were apologizing for their intuition. They were saying, Doctor, I have to ask you a question, but I'm sorry I have to ask you this question. And what it is that human relationship between doctor and patient, right? And I really find at Health Latch that the real problem comes out in the story, not checking boxes on a medical form, but if you actually let the person tell their story, because they start to tell you things that they think are small little breadcrumbs, but if you add them together on their home experience,
Pieces of a
they,
puzzle.
that's right.
So,
Yeah,
can I just ask another question about what
sure.
you mentioned to do with tongue ties? So there's sometimes a bit of tag or something unfinished, like in any production line, a bit of a snag hanging off there or something tying something together. So skin which hasn't properly separated or allowed flexibility of the mouth. So there's could be a tongue tie under the tongue, or there can be tongue ties between the gum and the upper lip.
Mhm.
And so from what you're saying, these things just make it worse. But the thing is, the issue is the dysfunction of the
Mhm.
muscular memory not knowing how to do its job or not getting
Mhm.
the practice to do that job properly. So when you release the tongue tie, if that is an issue, then you still have to go through exercises, don't you, to teach the sucking mechanism to create that muscle memory, right?
That's correct, and that's why we've gone to I'm a very systematic doctor. I'm really good at processes that make good outcomes and transformations. And so I deal with all of these topics in the book because I want the end consumer to know that when parents take their child to the person that's going to diagnose something, maybe a tongue tie, maybe a lip tie, maybe oral dysfunction at the least, the person that's actually giving them the diagnosis has no education in feeding, zero, right? Like from a dentist standpoint, I didn't learn anything about sucking and swallowing of a baby in dental school, even though I went to the number one dental school, followed it up with a master's in pediatric dentistry at the same school. I didn't know any of this. And then the pediatricians are not a functional therapist either. Maybe you got a pediatrician that went on to school to learn that if they were really interested. That would be a very rare breed. So no baby that comes to my office actually gets to see me until they've had a full functional exam from an occupational therapist or an oral motor therapist.
Yeah, so this can be an underlying issue that's not picked up, and it. So I've interviewed other dentists to do with TMJ. So where the
Mm-hmm.
jaw is out of alignment, or
Mm-hmm.
chiropractors that can help to make adjustments, and they deal with also with the TMJ issue. But if that's not right, and there are nerves being influenced, or not working properly because something's out of alignment, it affects the whole vagus nerve, the digestive system, from the time you swallow, from your ability to swallow, till it comes out the other end, right? The whole system
Yeah,
is
that's
affected.
right.
And so if you have you been dealing with digestive issues for a long time, it can lead to metabolic issues. Eventually, the body loses its ability to make energy, and that could lead into diabetes and all sorts of other more, dangerous, cardiovascular problems. But if we can catch this early and give those children the best start in life, they're less likely to walk down that track. So knowledge is power, right?
Yes, for sure, for sure. Well, prevention, right? I actually had my grandfather was an anesthesiologist, was on the beaches of Normandy during D-Day, and I used to spend my summers. My mom and I was raised in Michigan, but my mom and dad would send us to North Carolina to his farm to get in good trouble, is what my mom would say during the summer. And my grandfather said to me one day, he said, Jimmy, someday you're going to become a doctor, you're going to write a book. But the best thing about a really good doctor is they can prevent a problem before it starts. And really, when I went to the babies, right, walked away from all pediatric dentistry to just open a clinic that not a lot of people understood at first, that specifically focused on hearing stories from mom about breastfeeding and getting that breast. Because when kids, the gist of it, and I'm tying, you're amazing at tying so many things together because all of those things are tied together, and we see them on the babies. Like the reflux, the digestive problems, the white tongue in the back, the high vaulted palate already at day 30 of life, right? And we just got to understand as humans, this bone in the early days is like spaghetti. It's super soft and it will
Yeah.
change really fast.
And then it's how you release digestive enzymes and the pH of the saliva and the swallowing mechanism, and then that affects how you breathe. Can you explain how that connects with the breathing as well?
Yeah. So we have, uh, how's the easiest way? Let's go back to the basics. So in the body, form follows function. It's not the other way around. The form of our face is followed by the function of the muscles. If the muscles are dysfunctional, we are going to end up with a long, slender face that is vertically growing. And we tend to be an open mouth posture child at that
Oh,
point.
and
So for the
crowded teeth.
and crowded teeth, yep, because basically we're using the wrong muscles to suck with, right? We're not even using our tongue.
Wow.
Our tongue is not going to the palate.
Yeah.
And that will just create a cavity, a mouth that gets smaller over time and vaulted in the palate. Well, the top of the mouth is the floor of the nose. So most kids with a vaulted palate, in order to calm their parasympathetic nervous system, because the tongue's not reaching the palate, they will become a thumb sucker, right? They have to use their thumb to basically
The
touch that vagus nerve.
stimulation.
You touch the vagus nerve, the digestive nerve, right?
And what does that do? It makes them feel calm. It gets rid of anxiety, right?
Yep, yep. So the more stress we put on the body in the growth of the face, because here's the easiest way for me to talk on these podcasts to the
Whoops.
end consumer and that's okay, to
Sorry.
the end consumer that usually understands this about form follows function. So, and this is a little daunting. Okay, are you ready?
Yep, go
so,
ahead.
so 100. Let's go back 150 years ago, 200 years ago. There was no orthodontist There was no CPAP machine. There was no open mouth posture. There was no massive grinding and TMJ and anxiety and ADHD and hyperactivity and all of the things.
Yes.
So why was that? And we go back to form follows function, is because our food supply, we were hunters and gatherers. We roamed the land. We didn't eat all of the time. We didn't graze. We killed a fish if we were lucky with a spear. We picked up that uncooked fish, we grabbed it with our teeth, and we tore. And that force on the muscles made the face advanced forward.
Yeah, different muscle memory.
That's right. That's right. Just force itself. Force on bone is going to make bone move. But if you can imagine 40s, 50s, 60s, let's talk about some movie stars because it's easier for people to understand when I'm talking about faces, some movie stars. So Marilyn Monroe, James Dean back in the day, chiseled jaws, symmetric faces, and they were deemed by society as beautiful, beautiful people because of the symmetry of their face.
Yep.
Now, that's not even that long ago, and now we have a world of crooked faced people. So, what is the source of that? Is mastication. We're not chewing hard food anymore. We're basically go from
Yeah.
breast to pureed.
So
So,
it's dietary as well, isn't it? It's
it is.
the deterioration of the nutritional supply. So we're not getting enough probably amino acids, the good fats, perhaps way too many carbohydrates, which
Yep.
cause, more acidity and of
More
course
yeast.
acid saliva then erode your enamel. And you notice in Africa, people that still have the traditional diets, they're tall and muscular and lean, and they have big square faces with very wide smiles and beautiful big white teeth. And
You got it.
yeah, so very aesthetically pleasing because, it's telling you the nutrients that they need are all there, and they're probably getting the right exercise for the muscle
Hmm.
memory.
Yep. Yeah. And I just to kind of drive it home in that connection to Africa, right? So, large breastfeeding community, water supply is probably not the easiest or the cleanest or the safest in some areas. So, a lot of breastfeeding. And when kids grow that long, slender face with the nasal cavity now closed in their open mouth posture, we are doing two things. We are growing large tonsils. And the world kind of talks about large tonsils being that open mouth posture. But here's the breathing thing. I'm trying to bring it back to your original question.
Hmm.
When we breathe with tongue up, lip sealed, and through these two little nostrils with concha bouncing the wind throughout our nose, it's resisting the air. So we actually have to belly breathe. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. But when we open mouth posture through a bigger hole, we literally are spending our life just taking little sips of air.
Shallow, yeah. This is
Shallow
probably
breathing.
why breathing techniques work well to calm the nervous system, right? Because you're
That's right.
exercising the diaphragm more, getting more oxygen.
Yeah. So if you're having a hard time sleeping one night, the best thing for you is you seal your lips as best you can, and you're going to take about 20, 30 long, deep breaths. And those breaths bouncing off the nose will produce nitric oxide, right? Not nitrous like a dentist, but nitric. Nitric oxide calms the parasympathetic
And
nervous
it
system.
expands the vascular system.
You
Everything
got it.
flows more, no
You got it.
restriction,
It'll knock you out. It'll knock you out. So
like
it's just it all
magnesium.
goes. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, so that's my
So
specialty with electromagnesium. It's a great way to help relax the muscles, for your muscles to recover from exercise, to calm the nervous system. But we need to know more. This one component in a bigger picture. It's a very valuable natural tool to use magnesium transdermally or in massage to relax quickly. No drugs, no side effects.
mhm.
However, what's causing the problem in the first place is an interesting question. And this is about digging deeper into the functional reason why the anxiety was there in the first place, why the magnesium deficiency, because if you're always under stress, that background stress can cause you to excrete excessive amounts of magnesium and become more anxious and more easily stressed and more sensitive.
Yeah. And I heard it from a really good speaker once. And this is talking about how we've kind of disrupted evolution. Because if you understand, right, for millions of years we evolved, and in a short period of time since industrialized food, we basically collapsed the human airway, or we're collapsing the human airway. And so going back again 200 years ago, the worst thing that could happen to you 200 years ago is that you would get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, right? And so when that saber-toothed tiger is chasing you, the first thing you do is you get this gut feeling, right? And what is that? That's blood rushing away from your digestive system. And that's that feeling people get of that gut feeling, oh, I'm in trouble, fight or flight,
Fight or
right?
flight, and the
You
and
got
the
it.
the the vascular flow, the blood flow, and the energy goes to the limbs,
That's
the
right.
muscles that help you run.
That's right. And then number two is the immune system. When we're under stress, the body shuts off the immune system from that tiger because the worst case scenario is that you either live or die, and it doesn't really matter right now about
Yeah,
bacteria.
you've got to ration your energy and push it in the direction to deal with the crisis, right?
Yep.
That
And
leaves
then
you
the
short.
left. Yep.
That's all right if you're having a short-term burst. But the
Hmm.
problem is with chronic stress, isn't it? It's always a background stress, a background, it doesn't resolve. You don't have a chance to catch up. That's the problem
Yep.
that causes deterioration and disease, right?
Yep. Yeah, I know. And then the third thing that that saber-tooth tiger does is turn off the thinking brain. Because if you can imagine in that moment when the tiger's chasing you, if you actually take the time to think and you're not thinking subconsciously, you won't act quick enough to get away. And you got right to my point, which is saber-tooth tiger, worst case scenario, you live or die, but it only takes 10 minutes. Well, what are our stressors 24/7? Money, worldly things, unfortunately, going on right now. And then we got social media thinking, making us seem like we're behind. We're
Just
not.
not feeling safe, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, there's
Yeah.
everywhere you turn, there are messages which say we're not safe. So how can you relax and think clearly unless you are able to put yourself into a state of relaxation and know that you are safe? And then the mind opens up creatively to think
Yeah.
about solutions,
Yeah.
which
Yeah. And
obviously
then,
you've done.
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, go into the book. It's written really well. I know it is. It's resonating with a lot of people. I said on another podcast, I got an email from a 60-year-old woman in Australia who only read the book because of the funny title, but then she cried the whole time because she didn't realize how much trauma she had during feeding of her infants that are now grown children, and it allowed her to let go of it. But even simple things in the book, like it helps families understand in this world, we've been displaced from our families. We used to raise families in a village, right? And so our families were close and there was a church close by. I could go over to the neighbor's house and eat out of the refrigerator with no problem. But now we're kind of isolated. And these large companies, and I can speak to it here in Seattle, like Amazon and Boeing and Starbucks and Apple, they're displacing people from India from their families. So families,
And that's stressful. That's
it
stressful.
is.
We're a tribal being. Tribal humans are tribal creatures, and we
Yeah,
get safety by sticking together and working as a
yeah,
group. Social
that's right.
support.
And the chapter 9 in the book is I call it the new village. Like families have to understand that they need to create the new village, which is a lactation consultant, an occupational therapist, and someone from church that brings them meals in
And a
those
very
first
kind
weeks,
doctor,
and a very kind doctor,
not a
maybe.
production line of
Yes,
doctors, and you never get to
yes.
know anyone, and they never get to know you.
Yes. Oh, the most important things with moms is how you ask the question. Because if you ask mom, how's breastfeeding going? The world tells her that she's supposed to say, well. But if you ask mom the same question, you say, is breastfeeding going as you expected it to go? You create vulnerability in that second.
So you
And
can't
it
just say it
allows
sucks.
mom, yeah. They usually cry. They usually say, this alligator is on my nipple and my nipple
Mm.
is half off and cracked and bleeding. I've had mastitis 2 times. This plan I've been giving, every time I go into the primary care, they tell me my baby's normal, but then I go home and my lived experience is not normal.
Yeah.
I'm up all night. I'm triple feeding. It's not sustainable. I'm losing my mind. I have no help. that is the real
It's
story.
very stressful, especially because you're not getting a full amount of sleep in those early times. And mums can get very worn out. I know I've had four children. Two out of those I got the mastitis because I was producing a lot of milk, and the boobs were very much larger than the ability of that tiny mouth in the first month to get around. But I found it really helpful to get tuition and help from the Breastfeeding Association. So they have people that come in and help with squeezing the breast a little bit and making the end a bit smaller so it fits in. And they have to teach the mothers how to push that nipple towards the back of the mouth, which you don't
Hmm.
automatically know that.
Yeah.
Someone usually has to tell you the right way to do it. It's like almost counterintuitive, isn't it? Because, otherwise they just munch on the end and it causes irritation and then bacteria can get in and there's mastitis.
Hmm. Yeah. And the book's written very storybook like. It's not technical. Families are blowing through it real quick and then responding very quickly. And but it's a journey, and the journey is what I call intuition, awareness, and advocacy, which is I know there's something wrong with my kiddo. I've got to have enough in me to trust my intuition, even when I'm standing in front of people with white coats that say things are normal. I got to do a little bit more digging to find
Yeah.
awareness.
Yep. Your
And
mama intuition.
that's right. And then you find awareness, you find that guide that explains to you the actual problem, which is usually not the mother, it's actually the baby. And then they can become an advocate. Everybody wants to be an advocate for their baby, right? But if they don't have awareness in that
Yeah.
process, it's again, it's a process, then they won't be able to become the advocate. And in our closing remarks, because I know we only had a half
Yep.
hour, but
Yep.
like, here's the thing I'll tell you. My book is very important for humankind because I truly believe that every single person in this world was brought here for a reason, right? And they are made to be a unicorn. And that unicorn could be Steve Jobs or Michelle Obama or Gandhi or whoever, right? But if we keep producing kids that can't breathe and can't thrive and have anxiety, they will never become the unicorn that the universe
Yep.
meant for them to be. So that's kind of the weight of my book. It's a very
Ah, that's
lighthearted
beautiful.
story. Yeah, but
Beautiful message.
that's
It's
yeah.
so relevant. Um, is it just for future generations, or is there something an adult can do if they've developed these problems? Like, can adults still have skin ties, or would they have resolved by that time?
No, the fascia, unfortunately, that did not dissolve in utero is there forever. Usually, how an adult kind of picks it up, and it's I want you to know, just if we go back even just 10 years, I was, this was not accepted knowledge. It wasn't talked about. It was shunned. I really believe in values, and my values at Health Latch are a process, which are really quick. I'll go through them. Radically kind, fiercely patient, disruptively brave, and defiantly joyful. And what that means is I had to be radically kind in the beginning when insurance was not recognizing anything I was doing for families. And I honestly had to give it away in order to make transformations. And then I leveraged the transformations patiently, fiercely patient, and then the book is disruptively brave to get to defiantly joyful.
Well,
So that,
congratulations.
yeah.
I'm so happy that you stepped out on that limb to tell the truth of your experience because we need more like you. We need to turn this ship around, which seems to
Mhm.
be going largely in the wrong direction, so
Mhm.
that people can, manifest and achieve their thing to do in this world, their mission to be here to create something new and great and powerful and beautiful and to contribute to the group, and
Yeah.
to share truth and, you know, love, support, productivity, creativity, all the fun stuff. If you're
Hmm.
suffering with a disability, something holding you back because you didn't get this right start and it wasn't corrected, then we're kind of wasting a lot of time in life, aren't we? Wasting a lot of time chasing our tail, trying to fix something that would have been easy right at the beginning. As
Hmm.
midwives used to do, I believe, for millennia. It's like been a
Hmm.
tradition for a long time to check for tongue ties, right?
Yeah. 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 And the story. the story definitely has to shift from tongue ties. I even handle that in the book that we messed it. I like to put myself under the bus because it's easier to self-criticize myself in front of others than criticize others. And so in the beginning days when we kind of figured this out, and tongue tie was a portion of it. It's really oral dysfunction and the therapy that makes the babies magically better. But we kind of got so excited about the procedure and as dentists wanting to help, right? That everything was tongue tie. Everything was tongue
Yeah.
tie, tongue
Well,
tie,
it's
tongue
very
tie.
physical, isn't it? It's mechanical. It's
Yeah,
like
we can
the
help.
easy part of that equation. Yeah,
Yeah,
but the other part was missing, and that's the muscular memory and the
that's
training of
right.
the muscles. So if
Yeah.
people want to find out more, read your book, connect with you, where should they go?
There's a couple things. If you, I think I gave you the link in the Podmatch
Yep,
notes, but that
yep,
little link actually, I'm on Podcast Worldwide, so it actually works in any country. It changes Amazon to your
yep,
local
uh,
Amazon page.
yep.
And then I don't think anybody else in the world is going to write a book called Why Babies Suck. So if you
Yeah.
just go to Amazon and type that in, it'll pop right up.
Yeah, so and there's healthlatch.com, isn't there? That's your website.
Yeah, and just a little bit on healthlatch.com. That is my physical clinic. But if you go up at the top bar and you look under Start Here, there's something called the Intuition Builder. And I do love how technology is advancing. And I turned myself into a digital mind backed by 450 articles that families can actually call me worldwide in their native language, and I'm actually speaking their language.
Wow.
So then they can actually talk to me in their language and triage their problems.
Nice. So we're not restricted by distance.
That's right. Well, part of those things that I had to do is because my little tiny clinic in Bellevue, Washington is getting emails from all over the world as families
Yep.
kind of figure this out on ChatGPT.
So your book really helps to train or to teach one to many rather than just one on one, so that
Yep,
things, knowledge travels faster that way.
that's right. That's right. And I'm very passionate about the pediatric dental profession because if you can imagine, we are the workforce that's going to catch a lot of this because we start now seeing babies at day 4. We're doing knee to knee exams by age of 1. We're checking on tonsils by age of 2. We're looking at dentition changing. We literally see we have the workforce where we're not just saying, are you healthy or are you not? We can actually pick up the
Yep.
breadcrumbs along the way. So I'm producing an app that will come out in about 30 days for all pediatric dentists worldwide to get fully educated on all these issues.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for all your great information. I'm sure lots of people will get a lot out of this podcast.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. You're so sweet, Sandy, and I appreciate you having me on and listening to my little story.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
I hope you liked this conversation and will share it with others. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. If you want to listen to other Body Charge conversations, click like, subscribe, the bell icon, and click all notifications. Subscribe to our newsletter to get updates on blogs, podcasts, videos, and magnesium special offers at electromagnesium.com.au. Relax, recharge, and recover.